Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Let's have a great time with a very unique leathercraft project. We're going to make a pair of wet-formed bottle cap drink coasters. How cool is that? Here's the best part. We've got an empty canvas. Do we want to stamp, tool? Even better, maybe we paint in our favorite beer brand, soda brand, or how about our own brand? All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com or check below. We've got links there. Going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table, get started. We really do have a simple pattern here. In fact, we don't even need a digital pick. We're just cutting two pieces. So let's start right here. This is 5 inches across, 12.7 centimeters. This is going to be the cap itself. Secondly, we've got what I'm calling a liner, for lack of a better word. We're going to drop this inside the cap. Well, first off, that's going to make it look like a bottle cap, but also it's going to give it a little weight, a little body in the base of that. It's going to make it feel good. So right there, that piece is 3 inches or 7.62 centimeters. Now we've got some forms. We'll come back to those, but easy to measure, easy to make. Now, cutting a circle in leather, it's always difficult. Even the smallest hiccup is very noticeable. Well, I can't be a lot of help there, but what we can do is let's start with a perfect circle. That's a step towards getting a good circle cut in our leather. So right here, I've got some of our pattern sheeting, our inexpensive wing divider, which is a great set, and then right here, our top of the line. Absolutely, these are beautiful. Well, with these, very sharp point. So right here, I'm going to pick a spot in the middle of my piece, and I'm going to press that prong in, okay? Now, let's just make one turn. Let's lean a little bit and make one turn. Okay, we've got that. Now, I'm not pressing very hard, but now what I'm going to do, let's turn this about 6 or 7 times. I'm going to leave that right there, and I'm just going to turn the pattern sheeting. And there we are. I've had to turn that about 10 times, but we get a perfect circle every time, whatever diameter we want. Best part, we've got a center mark on that. Okay, so let's step over to our main table, cut some leather. Let's go with a single shoulder. This is a good buy for us crafters. Quality leather, good price. But a big point here, it's not such a large piece of leather that we really struggle with it if we're working in a smaller workspace. Okay, so let's swing this around. In fact, I've already cut out of this. I love these. All right, so on this piece, we do not have to cut a perfect circle here. It's a little difficult to do, but because we're going to form this, doesn't have to be perfect. Now with a pen, not the best way to mark leather, but I and the camera can both see this. So let's mark 2 out. We're going to make a pair. Let's mark that lightly. Good. Let's do that again. We've got that. Now, let's cut this piece of leather out, making it a good bit easier to cut a circle. Okay, we've got that, so let's just do our best to cut this just a hair inside that ink line. And there we are. Well, again, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. And we've got our second one out, and like I said, just even the smallest glitch there will stand out like a sore thumb, but we've got 2 pretty good circles here. Now we're going with an 8 to 9 ounce. I'd almost prefer a 7 to 8 ounce, but we rarely have that in our shops. One of my favorite weights, but it's not common to most of us. Okay, so let's step over for the inside of our bottle cap. We're going to go with our Santa Rosa. This is the slate. Now we could use an Angelus paint and go with a veg tan. We'll talk about that. But right here, now we really do need some clean circles. So let's drop this in and let's trace this. And now let's do our best here to get a good circular cut. And wow, that one really isn't perfect, but it's going to be sitting down inside a bottle cap, so we should be fine there. Okay, let's step over to our pattern table, talk about our mold. We've got a simple, inexpensive form to make here. In fact, I keep 2 in my shop so I can mold 2 caps at one time. The old protractor. I use this in my shop far more than I ever use this in any math class. But on our molds, we're going to give our nails a 30-degree spread. Now, that's just scrap wood. I've got a piece of pattern sheeting in there so that my bottle cap doesn't pick up the wood impression. But also, if we get some dye on that, easy to change out, okay? So let's start right here with our protractor. I'm going to lay this in. I'm going to mark my center point and our center line, okay? Let's draw that in. Now, we're going to go 30-degree spread right here. So, 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30. And there we are, okay? Now, we don't have to go all the way around, because we can put our pen right on our center mark and just draw that across. And we've got that, so easy enough there. Now, with our wing divider, we can determine our diameter. We're 4 inches here, but the best part about this, 30 degrees here is 30 degrees out here. Okay, let's step back to our main table, form some leather. As these dry, we're going to work these a little bit here and there. We're going to do our best to get a good mold. Now, I didn't mention this, but if you notice my nails are actually leaning out. Well, that's 2 reasons. First off, I don't want this cap so tight that a drink won't sit down in it. So we want to open that up a little bit. Still going to give us the impression of a bottle cap, but secondly, the head's on the nails. I don't want to scratch up the leather with these. So let's do this. Let's drop our leather in some water. And let's leave that in there. Let's give it a good 15, maybe 20 seconds. I really want to get that leather wet. Those have actually sunk to the bottom, so we've got some good water content in there. Let's set those aside and give those maybe a couple minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. These are just right, very malleable. Let's do this. Let's work these one at a time. And I'm going to press this top grain down. Let's press this down into our mold, but let's do our best to avoid the heads on the nails. Good, we've got that. Now, like I said, we're going to work this as it dries. Let's press that down, and then with our fingers, let's just press in between each nail. Good, we've got that. Now, this can rise up or drop down on either side, but let's just make sure we try our best to get that as even as we can. Okay, we've got that again. Let's work that a little bit more. Let's pinch those points. Good, that's starting to look consistent. Okay, let's set that aside. I'm going to do the same thing to this piece. Now, a 7 to 8 ounce is going to mold a little bit better for us, but something like, say, maybe a 5, 6, 6, 7, that will give us a nice mold, but it's just a little too wide, a little too light. I want some good body to these. Okay, so let's give those about, let's say half an hour, then we'll come back and we'll work them again. These are probably not going to dry very much in, say, 15 or 20 minutes. But again, let's work our way around. Let's pinch those points. And our points look pretty good. Okay, let's just make sure that we press that down, have a good flat base. Now, we could work this again, but all told, that actually looks pretty good. Okay, so let's leave these right where they are. We've got to give these ample dry time. I would say overnight at least. Ample dry time, and these actually look pretty good, very nice. Now, we might have a mistake here. So right here, I've used our pattern sheeting and our wing divider. When we press that wing divider into that pattern sheeting, it's going to create a dimple on the other side. I glued that up. Should have glued that down. Now, I say it's a mistake, but in all honesty, if we're going to add artwork, we're going to paint these, we know exactly where our center mark is, and it's not really going to stand out. Okay, so let's reset here, add some dye. Let's go with our Pro Dye red on these. That's going to look good. But also the green, the blue, the brown, the black, all would look good. So we're going to dip dye these. Now we'll dye them. We're going to give them about half an hour. Then we'll come back and work them just a little bit more. Let them dry from there. So let's dip dye these. Now one big point here. Let me dab that, and then let's take a rag and just wipe off that excess dye. With our gloves, new gloves every time, because dye will absolutely transfer from one project or from our gloves to this project. Well, those look good already. Okay, let's give these about 20 minutes, give them a little dry time. In that time, I'm going to clean up, but then we'll come back and form these a little bit more. These are starting to look dry, but I can feel them. They're still a little bit wet. So the last thing I want to do, let's just press those points a little bit more. Now the dye, it's dry enough. We're not really going to worry about getting this on us or needing to use gloves. But again, let's just get those points a little more formed. And there we are. Those are looking good. Very unique, very creative. Okay, let's give those about 2 hours dry time. These actually dried a little bit faster than I thought they would, about 90 minutes. Now, one good point. These look pretty good, but right here, our sample, notice this is formed a little bit tighter. This is a 6 to 7 ounce. We could have gone this way, but I wanted to go with an 8 to 9 because that's simply going to be an uncommon weight in our shop. But nonetheless, these look pretty good. Okay, so let's go with a leather balm, one of my favorite top coats. So to apply, I love fleece. Best place for this, old sweatpants and old sweatshirts. Then we're going to buff with a simple cotton rag. Old t-shirts, another great source for those. So with this, we want to go a little bit sparingly. But that's why I like the fleece, because it will absorb a good bit of the leather balm. We can do a larger area. So let's work this in. And we've got our edges. Let's give that one more coat evenly across the top. Okay, good. Let's set that aside. I'm going to do the same thing over here. One thing we want to avoid though, streaks and bubbles. Those will show up. Okay, we've got that one done. So let's go back to our first. And again, with a simple cotton rag, let's buff. And let's make sure we get our edges. Okay, looking pretty good. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And nice. Those look good. Okay, let's step over to our pattern table. I mentioned this, but I didn't really go into great detail. So right here, we're using our Santa Rosa. This is the slate. But if we don't have any of this in our shop, really all I'm looking for here is a gray piece of leather that's going to sit in there. First off, to look like a bottle cap, but secondly, if we contact cement a piece in here, it's going to help this bottom stay flat. It's going to give it some good weight and a good feel. Now, here's an alternative. If we don't have the Santa Rosa or a gray leather in our shop, with the Angelus paints, we could always go with a veg tan, and we can absolutely paint that, and it's going to look good. Okay, so right here, let's drop one in, and just with my awl, I'm just going to lightly scribe an edge so we know where to add our glue. Okay, I can see that. So let's go with our S18. This is a great contact cement. Now, we're going to have to apply to both sides. Let's just get as close to that edge as we can. Now, if we don't get right to that edge, we're okay. We don't have any real stress on this. So even if that's not right to that edge, we're okay. So now let's fill in the center. Good. Okay, on this piece, I'd like to go right to the edge. So let's lay this on the edge of our table, Good. Now we can just brush right off. And fill in the center. Now we're going to get a little contact cement on our finger, absolutely. But since we've got a top coat here, if we touch that, it's not really going to be an issue. Okay, let's set those aside. Let that glue set. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And we've got that piece done. Okay, let's give that glue about 5 minutes. Let that set. We've got a little dry time here. What I want is with the contact cement, I want it to look dry, feel dry, to be tacky. That's what we've got. So let's drop our liner roughly to our scribed edge. Good. Now let's press down. And we've got that one, okay? Okay, well those actually look pretty good, okay? So now we want to add a design to the top. Here's an easy way to do this. If you don't feel like an artist, you don't have to be here to get very creative. We don't have to paint anything freehand. Now, right there, big empty canvas. We could stamp, we could tool, or like I said, how about our favorite beer brand, soda brand, or maybe our own brand? So what we're going to do, just to get an idea of how to do this, we're going to use a star within a star. Now, this is so easy to do. We're going to rely on tape to help us out here. And I can definitely vouch for the durability. I made that scabbard the same way 20 years ago. Now, we've got a good video on making a star. Very easy to do to any diameter. But let's do this. Let's take some very inexpensive. This is just the cheap packing tape. And let's lay this. I can see our center mark, so let's lay that on. And I'm not going to press that down real hard. We don't need to. The knife's going to do the work for us. So let's do our best to overlap that just a hair. Okay? We've got that. Now, I can see my center mark there simply because of a mistake. Maybe. Okay, let's lay in our star. Now, with our wood-handled awl, I'm going to trace this in. Now, to get that truly accurate, we could tape this down. Tape, do one side, tape, do the other side. But really, we're just more getting a feel of how to do this. Okay, with our art knife, sharp blade on this every time, I'm going to freehand cut out our stars. Now, we can absolutely use a straight edge if we need to, but I'm going to do my best to freehand this. Now, when we go to cut this, I just want to sink that blade in just enough to split the tape. If we cut a little bit down into the leather, that's okay. That's going to give us a good border for our paint. So let's cut all the way around. And I think we're cut. Okay, we're going to pull out this inner line. So with the tip of our art knife, let's see if we can lift that tape up without damaging the top grain of the leather. And there we are. I think we've got it. Okay. Now the tough choice. Which color are we going to go with? We've got so many beautiful Angelus paints. How about let's just do a blue? Now we could certainly use a brush on our Angelus, but I tend to like to go with a little bit softer brush. So now we don't have to worry about our lines. Let's just paint that in. Well, that looks good thus far. What I'd like to do is give this paint about maybe 5 minutes, let that dry, come back in, add a second coat. Good, okay, let's give it a few minutes dry time. And there's our second coat. We're going to have a pretty blue on here. Okay, let's give that about maybe 15 minutes dry time. Our paint is dry, and now the moment of truth. We're going to peel this off. But the big point here, we're going with a relatively basic design. We can go with multiple colors, multiple overlays. We're just masking. That's all we're doing. All right, so let's do our best to lightly peel off our outside tape. Okay, thus far outside looks good. And there we are. Now, it's not a perfect star. I'm on camera, I'm talking, trying to cut. But when we're in our shop and we take our time, there's no end to the possibilities. So on the other bottle cap, do I go with the same design, different color? The sky literally is the limit with this design. What a great project. These are easy and fun to make, but the best part, unlimited creative possibilities with our bottle cap design. I hope you have a blast designing these, and I hope they're a big hit with family and friends. Good luck with your projects.